Hello, everyone, and welcome to the June Public Kubernetes Steering Meeting. As a general reminder, these meetings are recorded and we post on the internet sometime later as soon as the automation kicks off. With that, we abide by the CNCF Code of Conduct, which essentially boils down to please be excellent to each other. Diving right into the agenda, just wanted to get a pulse check with the other members on how the annual reports are going.
I
That
can
I've had.
first.
Go ahead, Carlos.
Oh, thank you. I did one, and I need to do my other two. I'm planning to do this week, but so far those looks good to me. I just need to take another round with a clean mind. The idea is get merge that this week.
Tim?
I have gotten one pushed through, but still have two that are languished. We'll keep pushing.
I am honestly rather concerned. Like, this process just does not seem to be working. And would like to, at least eventually discuss something we can do to fix it or just try something different.
I feel like when I talk to my SIGs, they don't see a particular value in doing it. Even if they don't say that explicitly, it shows up across the board, I think, and the amount of doing on this versus other things. I think it's reasonable for us to look at, is there a value that we're really wanting? And if so, how do we better sell that value proposition to the SIG leadership? Or are there other paths to getting that value or what? I do believe there's value in this. I also worry, going back across my years on the project, that between the changes to the community meeting and the frequency there of report outs versus this, we've lost something for cross Kubernetes cohesive cohesion generating communications. This is important for the project as a whole to remain cohesive, but it's also really important for newcomers, which then feeds into sustainability versus burnout. If this is a large and complex project, if you come to it new and it's not particularly approachable or easy to understand where it is and where it's heading as a whole or its pieces, it's really, really daunting. So something in this area I do believe is needed, but we got to figure out how to make it both efficient and that it's not just efficient to generate something for somebody, but where the people generating feel and believe that there's value in sharing that information regularly.
Yeah, for some of it, I do think more automation could help, like actually automatically producing the owner's reports and things like that. But the general value add was, something for us. Well, it was less work for them because remember they did have the previous reporting out. And just trying to signal boost it with the greater group at large as things, what's been going on, what went well, what needs help, the help being the bigger thing. But honestly, some of the other GB and end user members, most of them don't even look at the summarized report. So that I don't think, at least the ones that I have talked to, does not appear to be working. So, I don't know. Either way, I do think we need to sort of revisit it and try and do something about it. Noah, you mentioned is some of it a speed bump problem by having to do it annually. Like we started reminding people to do it like last year, towards the end of last year. And frankly, it's not a lot of work. Yeah, November. But it's the lowest priority thing, so it never gets done. We do still need to have some kind of status check with the SIGs. I just don't know what that looks like.
One of the things in my mind is that in a way we do have that perhaps twice-ish a year in terms of the maintainers track content at KubeCon. There's not 100% coverage there, and then also it's not sort of a uniform style. Some present where they are, some present, here's a topic that we need to solve since we have the people together in the room. There's a lot of variation there, but I think in that sense there are examples where you can see that leadership understand the value of communicating where they are and where they're headed, and that it does happen. But this documented form becomes a challenge. Part of it is a speed bump, I think, because we saw this even at when SIGs were doing kind of quarterly readouts during the community meeting. Like, every week somebody was presenting something, and every week somebody was like, "Oh crap, I'm next," and trying to pull something together really, really quickly. But whether 3 or 4 times a year or once a year in that forum, or the annual reports forum, or twice a year kind of with KubeCon, there is a periodic bump. And I don't know if it's so much as of a speed bump versus a forcing function when there's an expectation. And the more frequently the expectation happens in smaller pieces, I feel like it's maybe easier to satisfy versus somehow thinking that this is a bigger, harder thing to do once a year than it actually is.
The other thing that like I've repeatedly told every SIG that I'm involved in, like, you don't have to do this yourself. You can also involve other members in your SIG. Like part of it is to be a status check with like the various sub projects and like, potentially a way to, help bring on new leads or, people to have that sort of oversight.
I really tried pushing that notion this year that this is a great opportunity for your up and coming people to maybe lead on this, because if they're able to articulate where things are and where they're headed, that's a great sign that they're really understanding and leading. If they can't, if they have a lot of questions, and that's a signpost that current leadership is maybe not communicating enough where they are and where they're headed in a durable, understandable, approachable way. People seem to agree, but also again, like prioritization, there's other stuff in line ahead of that.
Yeah. I was just jotting down a couple notes. So this might be something we can bring up at the chair and TL meeting that's happening. We have one later this week and then one next week, and potentially talk to the chairs about it, and try and get ideas. What would help them? What would help us? What can we do to potentially add value to the experience for them?
I wonder if we should maybe step back and start with what we think of as the value proposition for the project overall. There's, I guess for me, this is that commonizing cohesive moment where you can get a view of where the project is right now and where it's headed. And then kind of second in my mind is the approachability that the subparts give to people within the SIGs, or the view of how one's work in an area relates to the whole. But I wonder if others share that, or if not, if there are values that they see could be brought.
Either way, like we can at least start with bringing it up again in steering committee Slack and push the conversation a bit wider. But I think no matter what, just this isn't working. We need to do something about it. Does anyone else have any other comments or thoughts on sort of like annual reports and sort of their status? Yeah, that's kind of what I was like, just trying to push things along. Right, Tim has to go in like 10 minutes. Okay, then I'll at least move on to the next thing is spinning down SIGs and working groups. I guess one thing that did sort of come out of this at least check-in with the various groups is several are at least want to spin down. We've already seen one working group spin down, and I know SIG usability would like to spin down, and I think there's a couple others, along with the VMware user group, potentially moving over to the CNCF. Out of the other groups that people have polled, are there any groups that you know of that are interested in spinning down? Okay. Well, I think just need to push people to start kicking off the process to at least start that happening.
I need to check back in on
VMware user group.
the VMware user group, kind of the notion of it, which I think has largely happened, being subsumed in a larger CNCF user group instead of being platform or provider focused, which there was an attempt to do that in the past to kind of work perhaps for VMware, but others weren't there, and there's a broader need. At the end of March, we discussed, and there was an expectation of the final motions of that transition would happen later this month. So I'll just double check on the status of that.
Okay. It's just sort of along with the idea of the reports not being the best thing, is just sort of, spinning down the things that aren't actually working. Anyone else have any other thoughts or ideas regarding spinning down SIGs and working groups? Okay. Next thing is we have several SIGs that still need to create essentially the tech lead role, where the roles are both rolled up. I am reaching out to the ones that I'm a liaison for, but I just wanted to highlight if you have any of these on your list to reach out to them. And it can even be, at least opening a PR to add the same people to each role. But we should try and push that along and encourage people to bring on new people into the leadership roles. Anyone have any comments on that? Okay. I guess the last thing is if anyone else has anything that they would wish to discuss.
To the last topic, sorry. To the last topic, do you plan to do any more work in separating chairs and TLs? Like I know there was like initial PRs, but there are more can be done.
Oh, and sort of clarifying the chair role?
clarifying chair role and splitting it clearly with TLs. For instance, right now, enhancements permissions are given to everybody in most cases, to all the leads, but it's probably better to have it in TL's responsibility, like having enhancement approvals. So it was one of the questions for SIG node when I became a chair, like how to make sure that we follow the documents and make a everybody, like most of the SIGs doing it differently, but we in SIG node try to separate chairs and TLs to have it easier to get more people into chair position and not maybe get all the permissions at once.
So
we any work plan to do that.
We can bring it up with in the chairs and TLs meeting about sort of next steps, at least for handling enhancements. It's not something I necessarily just want to open a PR and removing everyone, but like I do think we can start the convo on that and push people to update and rename, or set like a deadline or something like that to go in there and make it explicit.
Yeah, I heard then some SIGs automatically giving approvals to chairmen because how DLs are set up, like how groups are set up. So that may be one interesting conversation. And I'm not necessarily saying that we should remove permissions. Removing permissions are hard. Like once given, it's it's hard to get away. But maybe if it will be more formal process, or maybe more like once we have TLs and chairs in every single group, we may start splitting the leads groups in every every repository, and it may help going forward to understand which part of leads has which permissions.
Yeah. Sorry.
And I think it's better done from steering position than from going from below, like from every individual SIG.
It's something we can, definitely take on as sort of at least a follow-up on how to reconcile that stuff. I do think the first step, no matter what, is at least getting the remaining SIGs to have the TL role defined. But we can start the conversation now about how the separation will then impact things like enhancements, since it will officially be, since we did break that up. Is there anything else that people would like to talk about today?
Yeah, I do. I just is there next steps on the working group LTS reformation? I see the issue in the PR open on that.
So once the charter is in a good place from the community perspective, like I know they were still looking at the adding other stakeholders and things like that. Once it's in a good state, then we will really start to take a look at it.
Okay, thank you.
Probably soon. Anything else?
I do have one thing to mention that came out of Amsterdam that I'm sure I'm not bringing not bringing new information to anyone's attention. When someone took me aside and asked me how we ended up with an all-male panel, and it was the steering AMA, I just want to I guess bring that up for when elections run again in, is it September, I think?
Yeah, the process will start kicking off soon. It also came up in like the actual steering session for KubeCon proper. Like there's not much that we can do about it outside of encouraging, you know, people from other backgrounds to run for steering.
I just wanted to let you know that folks were asking me about it.
Okay. For the record, I believe it was more like actually discussed in terms of the composition of the steering panel at the steering panel, I think, in Detroit. But anyway,
Cool.
With that, I think we can stop it here. Thank you, everyone, for, well, actually, we shouldn't discuss anything else with Tim gone, so I think call it there. Thanks, Alt. Later.
Thank you.
Thank you.